Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to bootstrap feature flags. Bootstrapping flags allows them to be available instantly, allowing you to do things like redirecting to different pages or showing components without any visual differences. To showcase this, I'm going to be building a server-side rendered React app using Express, setting up PostHog, and setting up all the rest of the pieces. So let's get started. To get started with our app, we're going to create a React app first. So we're going to run npx create React app, and we're just going to name it client. After this is done installing and creating all the files, we'll go into the client folder and we're going to install PostHog.js. So now we have a basic React app here. In our index.js file, we're going to want to set up PostHog. So to do this, we're going to go to PostHog and get our details for the initialization. We have a new PostHog project here. We can click web and then we can copy this code here that has our project API key and our API host. And then we will go back to our index.js file and we'll add that in here and we'll press save. And so now we have PostHog added. If you want to auto capture events, you're going to have to set up the provider, but we really just care about the initial load of the feature flag. So this is good enough for us now. The next thing we're going to do is create a flag. So once we have PostHog set up, we are going to next create a feature flag. So inside PostHog, we're going to go to the feature flag tab. We're going to create a feature flag. It's going to be named test flag. We're going to roll it out to 100% of users. You can add some conditions if you want. Just note that person properties need to be available when the flag first loads. And if we haven't identified the users, we won't have their properties. So if it's the first time a user visits a site, we may not have properties for them, and that will cause the flag to fail. So you need to pass those properties to the flag, basically. So we're just going to have the standard rollout of 100%, and we're going to press save. So we're going to copy the flag key and head back to our app. Back in our app, we're going to style it a bit differently here. We're going to clean this up and we're going to add a loaded property here. So this is going to say loaded. We're going to take the PostHog function and we're going to console.log ph.isFeatureEnabled, and then we're going to paste in our flag key. And we're just going to do this, and then we're going to save this. And now back when we go to our site, since we've already been on the site, we'll get true, and that's great. But if we open up a guest window here, and we'll drag this over, we can go to localhost 3000, and we'll open up the console here, and you'll see we get false. So we should be getting true, but we get false because we haven't bootstrapped any of the information. So this is the first time we've seen this user, and we don't really know what to do with this user. So it just returns false by default. So to make this accurate, we're going to need to bootstrap the flags, and that will allow this value to be true on first load like this. So to do this, we are going to need to server-side render our React app. So that means we're going to have to install some new packages here to do this. So the first couple we're going to install are two for the dev environment, and they're going to be Babel register and Babel plugin transform assets. And then we're also going to install nodemon, which allows you to run a server and update the changes to the server very quickly, basically. So we'll install both of those. And then we're going to create a new folder for the server. So it's going to be called server, and inside that server folder, we're going to have an index.js file. And this is where our Express server is going to happen. One more thing before we create our Express server is we're going to change this create route to a hydrate route. So that allows us to server-side render this React component. We're also going to, once we've done that, run npm run build And that's going to create a compiled, built, transformed version of our React app that we can server-side render. So now that we've done everything we need to do for our React app, we're going to create our Express app. So this is going to be a bit complicated or a lot of code all at once. Basically, we need to set up Babel. We need to import the packages for React, Express, and PostHog, and all the other different packages we're going to be using. Then we're going to set up a Express route that creates the React app and serves it from a specific route. So to do this, we're going to start with our Babel configuration. So we don't want request animation frame. We want at Babel/register, so the package you just installed. And then we're going to get presets here. And these presets are going to be at Babel preset env, and then we're going to use the at Babel preset React with the runtime being automatic. After that, we're going to set up plugins. So this is going to be another list, and this one is going to have our transform assets plugin. And this is going to transform our CSS and SVG files. And that allows us to statically serve these, basically. So we can close this out here. That's Babel all set up. And then we're going to next set up our main Express app. So to start with this Express app, we're going to require all of our packages here. So require React, then React DOM server. Then we're going to get our app. And this is going to be from our source, our app, and then default. We're going to get Express, require Express. We're going to get our file system, and we're also going to get path. So this will allow us to navigate the file system and deal with files, basically. And then finally, once we've done all that, we're going to create our Express app. And that's kind of the basics of all the things you need to require for this app. Next, we're going to create our actual route. So this is going to be app.get. We're going to get this for all routes. And this is going to require a request, a response, and next. And then we're going to build this out. So if the request URL does not equal the base URL, then we're going to go to the next, and then we're going to create our React app here. So const React app equals React DOM server dot render to string, and then React dot create element, and then this is going to be our app that we've created. So we're using a lot of these requirements up here, the React DOM server, the app, and also React to make all this happen, basically. And then our index file is going to be, we're going to resolve the path here of, it's just going to be build/index. So that will go to our build and grab the index file from the build. And then we're going to read this file using the file system, index file, UTF-8, and then error data. Cool. And then in here, we're going to handle the error. If error, just going to return a status 500 and send error. And then we're going to have our actual server rendered app here. So return res.send data.replace. And then we're going to replace the root. So we don't need the second half here, but this is the right idea. our div root, which is in our builds index folder, with a different root that includes our server rendered React app. And then we're going to close all this out. We need to do this instead. This needs to be like this. Perfect. So this is all closed out here. The last couple of steps are to app.use express.static. And then we're going to do this instead. /build. Cool. And then we're going to have our app listen to the 8080 port. 8080. And then we'll just console log to say that it's working. Console log, server is listening there, and then we will do this. Cool, so that's everything working there. Once this is all done, we can run nodemon server. And if it's working here, we can go to localhost 8080 and we should see the same app. So here we are at localhost 8080 and we have the same app running. We have the same assets here. Basically everything is the same, but we're server-side rendering this app. So that's kind of the Express app created. Next, we're going to want to set up the things we need to bootstrap the flags. So the next thing we want to do here is install PostHog on the backend. So we've already installed PostHog on the front end, but we have to install the PostHog node library on the backend. So this will allow us to use PostHog in this Express server. And then we're going to add PostHog here, const PostHog. And this is equal to require PostHog node. And then we're going to create a PostHog client, and that's going to be client equals new PostHog. And then this is going to take our API key. So we can go over to our index.js file over in the client side and copy that over. It's going to then take a host. So host, and that's going to be app.posthog.com. And because we are bootstrapping, we want to make sure it loads nice and quickly. And so we're going to use local evaluation on the backend, and that requires a personal API key. So we're going to say personal API key, and then we're going to get our personal API key here. So I'm going to show you how to create a personal API key. We're going to go into our PostHog instance. We're going to go into our personal settings here. We're going to click create personal API key, boot vid. I'm going to create the key here. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to just paste that value in there. And this will allow us to locally evaluate feature flags. So the next thing we need to do is we need to set up our user ID. So every feature flag requires you to get the user's distinct ID. And for our brand new users, they won't have a PostHog created ID yet. So we can create that ID for them. It's just a UUID basically, and we can check the cookies to see if there's an ID that exists. And if not, we'll create one for them. So to do this, we're going to install cookie parser. We're going to require the cookie parser here, of course. Cookie parser equals require cookie parser. That's great. And then we're also going to get the UUID stuff. So const v4 UUID v4 require UUID. And then we're going to use the cookie parser. So app.use cookie parser. Great. So once we have that set up, now we can set up the checking of cookies in the app route. So we're going to let distinct ID equals null. And then we're going to get the PostHog cookie. So ph cookie equals request.cookies. So we're using the request here. And then we're going to, the cookie value is ph underscore phc underscore your project API key, and then underscore PostHog. So that will get the PostHog cookie. And if there's a PostHog cookie, then we're going to get the distinct ID, which is distinct ID equals JSON.parse ph cookie. And then we want the distinct ID here. So distinct underscore ID. And then we're going to close that. And then if there isn't a distinct ID at this point, we're going to make the distinct ID equals the UUID there. So we're going to close that out as well and save that. So this is what we need to get the cookie, then get the distinct ID from the cookie. And if that distinct ID doesn't exist, then we'll create one. And then we're going to use this distinct ID at this point to check the feature flags. Now that we have the cookies and distinct IDs all set up, we can get our flags finally. So const flags equals await client get all flags distinct ID. So you'll see that there's an error here for the await. That's because we need to change this route to an async route. So we'll do that, and then we will save that. And we'll go into our read file here, and we're going to delete this response. And instead, we are going to write some code here. So const HTML equals data.replace. And then we're going to have our root again here, our div root. Div root. Yeah, so basically what we had before. But this is just going to be the start of what we're doing here. And then we are going to serialize the flags. So const serialize the flags so we can send them as a string. And then we'll also serialize the distinct ID. Distinct ID, because we need that on the front end to bootstrap the flags for the user. They also need a distinct ID on the front end. So we want to pass that to the front end as well. And then we're going to create a script tag that has both of these basically. So we're going to do script, and we're going to do window dot underscore underscore flag underscore data underscore underscore, just to make it really distinct. And this is going to equal serialized flags. And then we're going to make this ph underscore distinct ID. And that's going to equal our distinct ID. And then we're going to close out our script tag. So that looks good. The final thing here we're going to do is create our final HTML. And that's going to equal HTML.replace. And we're going to replace our head tag with our head tag that contains our script tag. So we're going to close that out there. That looks good. And then finally, we're just going to send this final HTML. So we'll save that. And that looks really good. We don't need to do anything for now. We're going to set up the way to handle this flag data and this distinct ID to actually bootstrap the flags on the client side next. To bootstrap our flags on the client side, we're going to go into the client side code index.js again, and we're going to get the data for our flags. So we're going to check for the window data. So const flag data equals window dot underscore underscore flag underscore data underscore underscore. And then we're also going to get the distinct ID the same way. And once we have this, we can go into our PostHog initialization and we can add a bootstrap option here. And this is going to take a object, and that's going to have a distinct ID, which is our distinct ID, and our feature flags, which equals the flag data. And we're going to add a comma here as well. And that's all we need to do really to bootstrap. We have this data from the server side. We're going to pass it into our client initialization on the client side, and that's going to allow this data to be available instantly. The last thing we need to do here is run npm run build, and to build the new edition of our client. And then we're going to run nodemon server again. And then we can go into our localhost and we'll inspect this again. We'll see that we get a true value here. That's great, but that's kind of what we expected. When we go to a guest tab here, and we do an initial load of this, you should see we also get a true here. So we'll just do it one more time to show it. We will pull this over here. We will open up the console, paste in the URL, and on our first load here, we get the true value. So if we were just client-side rendering, this would be false. So this is Bootstrap flags working here. So now that you have flags being bootstrapped on the client side, you can do things like navigating to other pages. You can change the components without users seeing, so you don't have layout shift, that sort of thing. It just makes the experience really seamless for users and make sure you have all the data you need to create a great app right away. So that was all for this tutorial on how to bootstrap feature flags in React and Express. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out posthog.com/blog for the written version of this tutorial and more. Thanks for watching.